But we have other things we need to talk about. Most of all, we have a day of reckoning. That's really great. I can't believe it that much. He's gonna have to put money into a bond. And it's gonna have to stay there, I hope. I think the worst thing for him is that he's not gonna be able to do business. Yeah. I think that's gonna be really hard. But that's part of his identity, So congratulations to the winners. Supported these candidates either with donations or phone calling or postcard writing or whatever. That hard work did pay off. And when Democrats vote, we win. And then, the last election, the reason that DeSantis won by as much as he did is because nobody voted.
Yeah.
I think nobody liked the candidate, so they didn't vote. And in Palm Beach County, there were more Republicans that voted than Democrats. And that's a really blue county. So make sure, whatever you do, let's make sure everybody goes out and votes this time. I know I'm talking to the choir here, but
Fire us up.
So I think I have a typo. Anyway, this is Black History Month, in case you didn't know. And there's a number of events around the area, and some of them are listed over there. Oops. Sorry. And so February 21st, we're going to have Democrats do lunch. That's part of the Village's Democratic Club. February 25th, we have the Education Forum with Jill Greenberg. You want to say something, Jill, about your talk?
Sure. Yes, some of you heard me talk here about banned books. What we're going to do with the Education Committee next Sunday at 2 o'clock is update that, because that was last June, and a lot has happened in our state and in our country. And I wanted to thank Governor DeSantis for yesterday. Front page of the Orlando Sentinel, big color picture of him with one of the women from Moms for Liberty. And the headline on the front page of the Orlando Sentinel yesterday was the governor of Florida, I can't say our governor, the governor of Florida saying book banning in Florida is a hoax. So come, and we're working on it, and it's so important to make people aware that it's not a hoax, and it's a real danger for our kids and our schools and our libraries.
Yeah, it is. And then March 2nd, there's something called Mad Soul. It's a Orlando Music and Arts Festival. And Maxwell Frost is going to be there, AOC is going to be there, and Ann Escobar is going to be there, in case you want to go. There's information about it. I'm going to send out all this information. Actually, I forgot the petitions and other information copies that I made copies of. I apologize for that, but I will send it all out to anybody who's on the email list. If you aren't on the email list, make sure you sign up to the email list. Then March 8th, we have International Women's Day celebration here in Dogwood. And Dorothy, would you like to say something about that?
I would. You are all invited March 8th for International Women's Day. It's going to be at Bridgeport, across the street from Arnold Palmer. We're going to have a panel of ladies from other countries that live here in the villages, some singing from our Sunshine Harmony group, and a lot of other surprises for you. We hope to make this an annual event. International Women's Day is celebrated all over the world. Some places it's a holiday, an international holiday. So come and join us, and I think you'll be rewarded by making the time and effort.
The day of action for Sumter County, which was supposed to be today, but they were going to do canvassing, that's been moved to next week. because of the rain. I tried to mention that. Let's see. And then we have the annual Eleanor Roosevelt Teas, that's from Citrus County Democratic Women's Club. They have a scholarship fundraiser. I'd like to have a scholarship fundraiser for this club. That's something we're going to talk about a little bit, but I did some work. I was a judge at a science fair at Wildwood High School, and I'd love to see us put together a scholarship for girls who are in science, who win, these awards, and then they have no way to get to they have no way to, they have no funds for transportation to any of these places that they win, if they win a regional award or a couple of them won international awards. I mean, we're not going to be able to do that much, but at least some. So anyway, they're pretty impressive, actually. We have Spring into Action. Do you want to say something, Lydia?
Yeah, the Democratic Executive Committee is having their annual fundraiser March 15th at Lake Meona. It's a Spring into Action. As you all know, this is a busy year and this is fundraising for the whole year. We're having Pinterest Driscoll come and speak. If you haven't had the opportunity to meet or hear Pinterest, she is the head of the Democratic Caucus at the Florida Legislature. She is a state representative from District 67 from Hillsborough County. She's a graduate of Harvard and from Georgetown Law School. She's very charismatic, and the thing that you really need to know about her is she's planning on running for governor. And so we're having a county fair for this and lots of games, and these are some of the prizes you can win that declares that you are a Democrat here in the area, standing strong for democracy. The lights to light up the future go blue, any little prizes. And this is the trifold for the silent auction. We're offering 3 trips. I don't know if you were at the gala last year. We had 3 trips that sold really wonderfully and helped our fundraising. This year we're going to Costa Rica, Italy, and France. So if you're interested in taking your family or your friends on a trip, please think about doing it through Sumter County, because these are wonderful trips and it helps fund what we're doing for the next year. So if you want any information, I have it here. You also can get the information on the Buzz through the club and through the Sumter County Democratic newsletter that goes out to the whole county. You don't have to live in the county to come. Luann and all of you who are in Lake and those of you who are in Marion, please feel free to come, because I think you all want to meet Pinterest.
Those trips, when do you have to use the money?
The money is for billboards, for texting, for getting information out.
No, the trips.
Oh, the trip. You pay $1,000 the night of the trip. You can pay by cash, check, or credit card. And then 10 days later, you have enough time. Some of the trips are like Costa Rica is a trip for 9 people. So if you're splitting up the cost with 9 people, you have time to get all of their monies together. You have 10 days to get that. And then you have 2 years to plan the trip. You call the organization and you set up the dates for your trip. So if you want information on those, I have flyers here for them. And they also have much more information with QR codes if you're familiar with how to use the QR code.
So we're going to do whatever we can to make sure Biden wins.
That is what we're aiming for.
But if you guys, Costa Rica is a good place. They have no military. And France and Germany, I'd be a little concerned because, you'll see Russian nukes coming in because they haven't paid their NATO fees.
So if you have any questions, I'll be back here.
What time?
It's March 15th at 6 to 9 at Lake Meona.
I'll send you
$35.
all this information.
Yeah, it's $35 for a ticket. It includes hot dogs and chips and snacks and popcorn and games and a chance to meet people.
Thanks. Okay, and April 1st is an important date. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. March 23rd is our next meeting, and it's going to be in the afternoon because they're doing, and it's the 4th week. So I didn't want to conflict with AAUW. Since they moved their meetings for us, we're gonna meet in the afternoon and we're gonna have a potluck and also hear from the sheriff about crime in the villages. He does not think there are any hate crimes in the villages for some reason, but I know there's been some reported. And he's talking about cybercrime. There's a lot of people are losing their whole life savings because, they get scammed.
Sue, what time is it on the 23rd?
It's 12:30, and again, I'll send out stuff about it. April 1st, we have, the state Supreme Court is supposed to approve the wording on the abortion amendment, and hopefully they will. But I just got this from Amy Weintraub, her, Progress Florida. She led a lot of the activities on the abortion petition. They're the Florida legislature continues to put together laws that are going to be, they have one called the Abuser Empowerment Act, Senate Bill 476, which would target abortion providers, abortion-seeking patients, and people who help them by allowing lawsuits for wrongful death of an unborn child. So we call it the Abuser Empowerment Act because it opens the door, to partners who are abusers. And then there's an anti-abortion. What? Okay. Then they have an anti-abortion propaganda website, House Bill 415, requires the Florida Department of Health to create a website using a third-party vendor that features anti-abortion pregnancy centers, and it's up for the final vote in the House this week. So, they don't give up. They still want to control our bodies, and they're trying to, it's a bunch of old white men. That's true. Then April 6th is the Lake County fundraiser. It's it's called Blue Gala, and Debbie McCuskey Powell, who's running against Rich Scott, will be the speaker. He's the keynote speaker. This one's a little more expensive than the other one. It's $150, so I don't know how many of us will go, but we'll see. Then May 15th to 20th, we have the Democratic Women's Club of Florida convention, and that is that's like 5 days, but most of us just go for a few days. And we're going to try to, one of the reasons we upped our dues is so we could send people there and give them some funding. So we will have a number of delegates, and if you want to be a delegate to the convention, please let me know. Then there's a bunch of recurring meetings that I sit in on, the communications and media meeting, which is really great. It talks about messaging and social media. Then there's This Week in Tallahassee, and that they vary who speaks at those meetings, but it's last time they had ACLU, who was really, really good. And then there's a recurring one on Tuesday, which is the legislative one. And again, I'll send out all this information. So this is the important meeting change, March 23rd. We're going to do a potluck, we're going to bring food to share. And I'll send out a note about, a list of things that you could bring, and then you can sign up. Yeah. Some of these dates are not right, actually. I just noticed. I must have been asleep. But March 8th, the Florida legislative session ends. So this is a midpoint discussion today, sort of a little more than midpoint. And then there's a presidential primary preference election. That's the one that's kicking us out of our normal time. Even though we have we've already decided that it's gonna be fine. I guess the Democratic Party decided that. And, it's April 1st, I got it on twice. And then there's, July 25th, is the voter registration deadline. August 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and 21st, depending on what county you're in, is an early voting period. Vote by mail deadline is July 14th to 21st, depending on what county you're in. So I'll send out all that information. It's a little confusing because it's by county and it's different from county to county. They just wanted to confuse us.
Yeah.
Confuse the voters. We are looking to form a fundraising committee, so if you're interested, this is to help fund the conventions and going to galas and things like that. We have some ideas. Barber and Coachado is one of the volunteers. You'd love to see more people work with her. I think we can have cooking, baking contests. We can have yard sales. We can have walkathons. We can do T-shirts. We need somebody who's artistic, maybe, Linda? We have people really into artistic people here. And we're going to probably do a Rosalind Carter celebration. I was amazed at all the things she's done. I was just amazed. And then, of course, we're going to have raffles and 50-50. We just started today. So anyway, if you're interested in working on the fundraising, you don't have to actually work on all this stuff. You can pick one thing. Like I'd like to help with the yard sale, or I'd like to help with the baking contests, or I'd like to work on the T-shirts. So you don't have to work on all this stuff, but I'd like to get people to volunteer to do that. So we also need a legislative team. I think Sarah Reagan volunteered to sit in on the first few meetings, and I think she didn't understand how much of work it is. It's a lot of work. I did it last year. It's really hard to keep up with what's going on. It's like 1,200 bills. We're in the last session, and it was like, drinking from a fire hose. It was just that bad. And we do need volunteers to cover some of the bills. We're not going to cover them all, but I think we're going to identify the highest priority bills. Clearly the ones on abortion that just came up are pretty high priority. And we can organize, if somebody's interested in the environment, they could focus on the environment bills that are being brought forward, or healthcare, whatever. So it's organized by type of, categories. And then we have to identify which ones are ones we would like to pass, or are likely to pass that we don't want to pass. So like Sarah's going to do a good point legislative updates. I thought I'd give you a little background on her. She grew up in Mississippi. She was formerly employed as a German and Russian language teacher at the Library of Congress before returning to school for a PhD in clinical psychology. And she worked 6 years at the National Institute of Mental Health. I worked at the National Institute of Health. So I know a little bit about that. And she lived in the metro DC area for 42 years. She lived in villages with her spouse, Helen Kelly, and 2 dogs, Baxter and Chewy. And she had a great opportunity to work, and she actually worked in the former Soviet Union, teaching Russian and English. I guess English. German. Okay. Whatever. month? Yeah. Anyway, I'll let Sarah have the floor here.
Give me the high side.
Okay. Now, are you at all worried about this?
Yes.
And particularly in Walton?
Yes. Terrifying.
Well, listen, who is in charge of the governor's office here in Florida? Well, Ron DeSantis. How about the attorney general?
Ron DeSantis.
Yes, Ashley Moody, and she is of what party? She's Republican, okay, the governor's office, the Department of Justice. What about the Secretary of State? A Republican, yes. His first name is Cord, I don't remember his last name. Anyway, what about the House, State House of Representatives? Who's in charge? Yes, and they even have a supermajority. Do you know what that means? You do. Very good. I was going to tell you there.
Yeah, tell us anyway.
Oh, okay. Actually, would you pass out those sheets? If you live in Sumter County, they're both. And in fact, did you pass out those sheets I left? You may not actually know, I won't point you out, but there's some of you who don't know who your state rep is or who your state senator is. We have a solution. There's a website, you can put in your address and see exactly who your state reps are. Now, rather than they are actually, let me add this, it changes all the time, the number of bills. It's like 1,872 bills have been submitted so far this year. They can submit up until the end of the session, which is around March 8th, 9th. They meet actually, your reps meet actually 60 consecutive days. They are paid $132,511. Okay, and that's what you're paid. I'm sure that they do more work. I hope they do more work than just the 6 consecutive days. So, just in case you don't know who they are, I'm going to have to find out how to move the slide. Let's see if it works. There he is, John Paul Temple. So if you're in Sumter County, he is your state rep, and you have on your sheet the ways to contact him, or to find out who the senators and reps are. If you're in Sumter County, he is your state senator. He's from New York, actually, came down and started the mortgage business down here. So those are your representatives. And let's see where we're going from there. Oops, wrong way. There we go. Now, we'll talk about being worried. The reason I'm using this slide is because of the secrecy, actually. That's part of the process, the legislative process. This slide, I believe, was related to concerns about how DeSantis' travel funds were covered. But there was something being worked around that, so that wasn't really easy to see. This gets down to one of the things that's going on very strongly here, which is the social engineering of he hopes the United States. And we notice that our freedoms are being attacked. And if you can't read this, it says Eli here mentioned his 2 moms. And I opened my fat mouth about a book I read about slavery. What do you mean? But this is our secret weapon. cover these 1,872 bills. That was actually as of Tuesday morning, 10:30 a.m. There are more out there. So I'm thinking, how am I going to cover these? I thought, okay, you can pair off in twos. Maybe we'll take a bathroom break. Maybe we could finish by Sunday morning. You don't look like you want to do that. So then I thought, okay, maybe I'll just pick 2 bills and do those. So I stuck with that for a while. But then I thought, there is such craziness out there. These women need to see what is being put out. They really need to see this. So what I'm going to do, I hope I won't. Remember Johnny Carson and throwing stuff around? Okay, I'll try not to do that. But I'm just going to give you a smattering of bills that are out there. So this part you just listen to. If we have time, then I'll call on you.
Yes, Sarah, I just want to mention that Taylor Swift is having 3 concerts in Miami right before the election.
Yes, Taylor Swift will be in Miami. I think she's doing 3 concerts, something like October 17th, 18th, and 19th. So we're hoping that will have a great impact. We can have a bus trip, but I bet we can't get tickets, and if we're doing thousands of dollars. Okay, I'm going to show you some of these bills. Believe it or not, one bill has come in that somebody in Florida should rewrite the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. Now, this person doesn't have to have any particular training, and they will not be accountable. That's part of the bill. So that's one of our bills. There are many preemption bills, and what this means is that control is taken away from the local level and moved up to the state. I think the environment is very sensitive to this. In fact, there's a case now around Fort Myers where there's a preserve there, and a developer wants to get into the preserve. So we'll see what happens. But there's going to be more concrete laid, I think. And businesses can sue government agencies that hurt their profits. Interesting. And we need glasses. Homelessness in Florida will no longer be allowed. That you have to build camps. Camps will be built that will have bathroom facilities and water available. Now, has any money been set aside for that? No. So you can imagine what's going to happen.
Have these bills passed, Sarah, or just introduced?
I didn't understand.
Proposed.
Have they been passed or just introduced?
I can't tell you. And the reason is that things, as you probably know, things go to committees. They may be in several committees depending on what the subject matter is. Then they move on. The legislative bodies vote. Then if they're passed, 67, it doesn't have to be 67%, but at least it can be. They go to the governor. He can sign them, not sign them, which is the same really as a veto, or veto them. So don't really know. It just depends on the time of day and so forth and so on. Interesting, this gender compared to sex. This bill says that you have to have your sex, meaning your anatomical structure at the time of birth. You have to have that. You can't have unofficial licenses. You can't have your gender. As opposed to sex, gender is what I think I am. I actually am very fortunate because I think I'm a woman, and anatomically I'm a woman. But for some people it doesn't work out that way. And this leads to a lot of problems that I don't know that much about, really. A bill that will ease the work hours in construction. Well, they've they've let people work until 11 o'clock. They're now going to let them work till 12 o'clock at night, and they could have a school day, school the next day. This is a very interesting one. Some kind soul out there put in a bill that says outdoor workers must be protected. Like they need to have water. This is particularly important when there's heat. Someone else put out a bill that said you are not allowed to protect outdoor workers. No. These people are mean. Yes. They do want to increase, somebody's put in a bill for increase in positions, which is a good thing. Now this is a very interesting one. It's called Safe Space Stickers. What it is mostly for the LGBTQ community. If you feel safe, a store will have a sticker on, I'm sorry, if you feel frightened or threatened, the store will have a sticker that says you can come in there and be safe. So Mount Dora, which is in Lake County, Mount Dora wanted to do this. Lake County said their delegation, which is like 3 state reps and 1 senator, said this would be negligent, irresponsible, and divisive at best, and it goes against the Bible. Don't have those stickers. No. The mayor, I don't know the mayor, but she must be a most gracious person, because she said, you know, Lake County is a little behind Mount Dora. So that was a very gentleman's way of addressing it, and I don't know what's happened with that. But watch out for the Bible. Okay. There are several, it's called the Defamation and Censorship Bill. But what it will really do is chill free speech in the sense that if you speak critically of the government, I don't know what they're going to do to you, but they're going to do something. So it's easier to sue, makes it also easier to sue media or citizens over public criticism. No public criticism. At last, a nice bill, I put it on white. A nice bill. It is a partisan bill that says poll workers should not be threatened or harmed in any way, and that is a 3rd-degree felony. You can't intimidate or arrest poll workers. Now, flags. Do you know that in Florida, it appears that your child is more endangered by a certain flag than by guns? And you gotta get that kid away from these flags. The guns, so what? So the bill is the government must remain neutral on flags. That translates into on government or, public property, you can only have 2 flags. The Florida flag and the American flag. Now, if you have what they do with MIAs, I don't know. That seems to me, well, anyway, I don't know what they do with that. If you have like a Black Lives Matter flag or LGBTQ flag, a veteran or a retired military person or an active military person or the National Guard can take that down and use reasonable force. So it's something other than one of the American flag and the Florida flag up. Military people are entitled to take those down using reasonable force. Oh, another thing that relates to meanness is if you're having problems with your sex and your gender, then you should have conversion therapy. Do people seem to know what that is? Yes. Yeah. Now, in science, we're very concerned about evidence-based treatments. you should do an evidence-based treatment or your insurance company won't pay for it. Evidence with conversion therapy is that it is not workable.
Right.
The American Psychological Association has filed some kind of bill against it or some sort of suit, I don't remember what. But they say you have to have conversion therapy. And, you know, it strikes me that this government is very attuned to punishment. Did you know that there's corporal punishment can be delivered in schools here? Some heads are not. I was shocked. Now, there are certain rules you have to go by if you're going to physically punish a kid. It can only be done by the principal. Another adult must be present. Need parental permission. And if you're a homeless kid or a kid on the autism spectrum, they can't punish you. So that's out there. And we know that punishment is the least effective form of, what am I thinking? Yeah, I'm trying to think of a word I can't think of. Oh, they wanted to cut down on human trafficking by knowing you must be 21 to work in a place of evening entertainment. So that could be, like you could be a bottle washer or a janitor or whatever, but if it's evening entertainment, you can't work there if you're not 21. Oh, they don't want any hormones for youth, and again, going back to evidence-based research, hormones for youth have tended to reduce the suicide rate in kids who are working with their gender. Oh, protect historical monuments. Now this is very interesting. Remember, Florida will ban history books. So history books can be banned, but they've got to protect historical monuments. So that means what that has meant is Confederate monuments will be protected. And how did they justify that? They did so on the frequency of visits. I don't know who counted the frequency of visits, but they say these monuments were listed more, so you've got to have those Confederate monuments. You know, I'm not going to talk about abortion, mainly because we won't even know what's going to happen. Well, I will say one thing about it. As you know, the Attorney General is trying to talk the Florida Supreme Court into not allowing it on the ballot. The other thing that would be on the ballot, by the way, is legalizing marijuana, just so you know that. Anyway, the thing about abortion is that Senator Aaron Grell wants to pass a bill saying that life begins at the point of conception. At the point of conception. So, well, I won't say any more than that. There was something called the Freedom to Learn Act, what a title it was, because you see what it limits. There are all these things you can't do. It has to do with history, and one of the conclusions is it's a systematic, comprehensive effort to limit what faculty can teach, but it is called the Freedom to Learn. So there are more bills about what can't be taught than what can be taught. Now, mention of human sexuality. You can't mention that until, just look at my thing here. At grades 7 through 12, you can start talking about dating violence and abuse. At grades 6 through 12, you can begin to talk about the benefits of abstinence. But this is very strange. Menstruation can't be mentioned before 6th grade. Well, as we know, the time for menses keeps getting shorter and shorter, so I think that's kind of neat. Just one thing more I want to say. Oh, you won't believe this. I couldn't believe this. They've been worried, you know, about real girls playing real sports, which we understand, and no trans men playing sports as girls. So how are they going to figure this out? What they decided, you won't believe it, each girl must keep track of her menses, period. She's got to keep track of that and then hand that over. Have you ever heard of it? Well, that one didn't get anywhere at all. But, okay. What's that? Okay, I'll easily wrap it up in 5 minutes. There's the whole stop woke teacher training, because the teachers can't be trained in anything that's related to woke. But they say that the candidate to be a teacher, must think critically. She or he must think critically. But there are all these things they can't be trained in. Now, you may know that the legislative body is considering, how did they put it? The minimum wage for teachers. What should that be? Because, as you also probably know, Florida is 48 in teacher pay. So they're now considering what could the minimum wage be that you pay teachers. We also have the nursing shortage, and that's kind of related to the same issue. So there are more laws that try to, more bills that try to undo what DeSantis did with his freedom to learn. That also limits what can be taught in colleges and universities. And he got rid of his board of trustees, put in a new board, and they alone can do hiring and firing. So these are not necessarily academic people at all. And teachers can be fired professors can be fired on the spot. So what on earth are we to do? I'm going to try to get the right slide. You've seen Taylor. So we have Ely who says, there may be times when we are powerless to prevent injustice. We can certainly feel that way. But there must never be a time when we fail to try. So there is that list. Now I hope some of you will get interested at looking at this stuff. It can be quite entertaining, and much of it you won't believe. There it is. Thank you for your attention.
So today we're pleased to have Kofi Hunt, who's the organizing director of Florida Voices for Healthcare. It's a campaign to win Medicaid expansion, and of course he sent me 500 petitions, and I left them at home. So I will get them to you next time, or via email. But very, very important. And I'll tell you why, from my point of view. This is not just about Medicaid, but your health care is at risk in Florida. Rick Scott has an 11-point plan if the GOP comes to power, and it's going to cut and privatize Medicare. It's going to cut Medicaid and turn it into a block grant program. It's going to cut Social Security, and it's going to reduce funding for substance abuse and mental health services. It's also going to expand Buffalo insurance plans. Does everybody know what a Buffalo insurance plan is? No. They only pay out if you get hit by a herd of buffaloes. And then repeal of the ACA individual mandate. They are looking to killing subsidies designed to pay poor folks out-of-pocket spending, and shortening the ACA open enrollment period, and reducing outreach and advertising. So a lot, and plus all the abortion bills. But they're still trying to control women's reproductive health. And DeSantis, he supports whatever Fox News tells him to support. And he's participating in a federal lawsuit that is successful would overturn the pre-existing conditions, protections in the current laws. And he opposes Medicaid expansion. He would allow the sale of junk healthcare plans, Buffalo healthcare plans, and those that don't meet the minimum benefit requirements of the ACA. And he basically is putting self-interest over the health of Floridians. We all know that. And all this stuff. So who's hurt by some of these cuts? And I don't know why they call them entitlements, because everybody, didn't you work, didn't you put money into Social Security? But he still say it's socialism, so we have to get past that. But Medicaid, which Kofi is going to talk about, is really used by people who are in nursing homes significantly. 64% of all nursing home residents are on Medicaid. And that's because they run out of money, and then they have to get Medicaid to cover the rest of their expenses in the home. If they have Medicaid beds, they may not have Medicaid beds in the future because they're cutting back on Medicaid. So I think it has a big impact on seniors. It has a big impact on the disabled, and a big impact on poor children and adults, and it certainly has an impact on nursing home residents. So with that, I'll let Kofi have the floor here. Well, Barbie's not going to be able to make it, but I will also, she had, kids were sick yesterday and she had not got it.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Hey everybody, how are you doing? I came here from St. Petersburg, so I'm a little late, sorry. The weather was, it was Florida. I'm born and raised in Florida. I've been in organizing for about 10 years now. And yeah, I'm organizing director with this campaign to win Medicaid expansion on the 2026 ballot. Our website is floridadecideshealthcare.org. And yeah, you know, how many of y'all have heard about Medicaid expansion? Okay. So I'm speaking to the choir. But yeah, Medicaid expansion, it's an idea, time has come. There's over 1.4 million Floridians that would qualify for it. And I can tell you I'm talking to a Democratic club right now, but it's not a partisan issue. There's rural areas, folks are like, we love DeSantis, we love Trump, but we need health care, right? Because the reality is that when folks go into hospitals right now in Florida, and they are in that coverage gap, but let's say they can't pay for their health care, the hospital, the clinic goes to the federal government, asks for reimbursement. The federal government says you should have Medicaid expansion. So we're not going to give you any money. There's clinics and hospitals across Florida, mainly in rural areas, mainly in red areas, not in the urban areas like I live in. I live in St. Pete, it's a bustling city. I have Johns Hopkins right down the road, you know, walk from my house. But in these rural areas, these red areas, yeah, these places are closing down because they just can't afford to stay open. It's estimated in some studies by the Urban Institute over $22 billion has been lost in reimbursements. More has been lost in terms of the money because the federal government offered Medicaid expansion under the Affordable Care Act to pay 100% of it for the first few years and then 90% of it after that, right? So it's estimated, once again, by the Urban Institute that Florida has missed out over the past few years on over $66 billion because we just refuse to expand Medicaid. And Medicaid expansion expansion is also a popular idea. Out of the 50 states in the United States of America, 40 have expanded Medicaid in some form or fashion, right? We can pick whatever plan we want. And the Florida Senate actually passed a version of Medicaid expansion several years ago. The Florida House did. And the governor at the time, who's currently our senator, was against it, and our current governor is against it as well. Although he took a big ding from that in the Republican presidential debate. And Florida having the largest amount of uninsured Americans, right? So it's not a partisan issue. With what we're doing, we're trying to get on the ballot. We believe, like minimum wage, like many other rights restoration, that's the way to get progressive change done in Florida. But like Sue was saying, I sent her 500 petitions. We need to get over 1 million signed, and we need your help, right? We need your help for each and every one of you to sign as registered voters, but we also need to get your families signed, your congregations to sign, your friends, anyone you know. Because if we do that, we're gonna get on the ballot, and I believe if we get on the ballot, we'll win, because I believe that as much as Floridians might argue about partisan issues right now, when it comes down to our lives, there is no parties, you know? So, I want to spend most time answering any questions you might have about Medicaid expansion, about our campaign. So, does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, several years ago, the taxpayers of Florida went to the polls and voted that former convicted felons could now vote.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? The Florida legislature worked around that.
Yeah.
What's to prevent the Florida legislature from doing the very same thing with Medicaid expansion?
I can tell you, when it comes to the ballot initiative, we get the language very simple so that it doesn't have a lot of room for interpretation. It says that Florida will be required to cover folks under Medicaid who are under 38% of that poverty level, like the ACA says. It doesn't specify how the plan will actually work, right? So yes, the legislature does have the opportunity to do their jobs. and their interpretation might not be my interpretation or yours or anyone else's. But when it comes to that, I really do believe in our democracy that what's to stop them, the people are the final check in democracy. So it's us. It's us doing what we're doing right now. So standing up, it's just giving our voice and telling them, we want the plan to work this way, we don't want to work that way, you know. And besides that, if I was speaking from a political perspective, it's making a change in Tallahassee, you know.
There's your answer.
Yeah, I'm speaking on behalf of a nonpartisan campaign, so I can't say certain things in a certain respect. But I was speaking from my political expertise, that's what I would say. Yes.
So Medicaid expansion, won't that be funded by the federal government?
Yes.
You're not going to screw around with their money.
No.
Okay.
And you know, for people that say like, I've had someone say to me like it's welfare, like not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not getting that debate, but like the idea is not welfare because the money comes from the government to the provider, right? There's no money going to somebody that they can just use for some other purpose. Sue, right? Quick thing.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to explain the coverage gap, where that is at, you know, how much is it not covered?
Yeah, so like I was saying, it's estimated over 1.4 million Floridians. The coverage gap is folks that are like less than 138% of the poverty level, right? So currently in Florida right now, to qualify for Medicaid, I think it's like you have to make annually around $9,000 or $8,000 a year, which I don't even know how you really do that.
Right.
You make minimum wage working part-time, they work $9,000 a year. But yeah, and obviously a lot of folks are qualified for that. So you have folks who, they make a certain amount that they don't qualify in say the healthcare.gov, right? But then they don't make enough, they make too much to be in current Medicaid, so then there's that gap. Yeah, that's what the coverage gap is. Yes.
Okay, so what is the Republican objection to this expansion if the money is coming from the federal government? Why don't they want to do it?
I mean, it goes into a lot of like sort of political, ideological perspectives, I think. But I mean, from what we've kind of heard, they feel like they'll be on the hook for it. Like the program's going to end and then they'll be on the hook for it. One of DeSantis's rebuttals at the debate, in his spin after the debate, was, well, Florida is not one of the states that has all these welfare programs. That was kind of his. And then the Senate president recently said something, and I'm just quoting what people said, right? I'm paraphrasing what people said. She said that, she inferred that Medicaid expansion, like if we did it, it's almost like we get more people getting healthcare access, and then that would like sort of, like create more waiting lines for folks to get healthcare. And she was saying it wasn't really on the agenda. And that was kind of her big quote of, yeah. And I know I'm characterizing her anyway. Yes.
They do not want Democrats to get credit for anything. That's right. Same way with the ACA. They don't accept state money for the ACA, only the federal money can come in here, because they don't want Democrats to get money.
I hear you. Yes.
A lot of people consider it socialized medicine.
Yeah.
We don't want any socialized medicine here. Medicare, Social Security.
Keep your hands off my Medicare, right? Too much.
In considering your petition when you first had the wording, before you put it down, did you consider when it went to the Supreme Court the dissection of each word that they do to make sure that, yes, your wording will go through as a amendment petition, and then, like right now, the abortion is suffering because of the word viability. So have each of your words been gone over by a committee or a legal standing to make sure that each word is going to pass the Supreme Court?
I can tell you, our legal counsel is the same as the abortion initiative, so whatever they're learning is our lessons coming back to us as well. So we're confident that the language is, specific enough that it will pass a review. Yeah. But yeah, whatever lessons they're learning right now are going to be carryovers. That would need to be carried over, I think. Yes.
Slightly different. Medicaid has expired for a number of citizens because I think it was the federal government passed regs to allow people on that during COVID, and it's a paperwork thing.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any idea how many Floridians that affected? Because it was millions of children too.
I don't, but I can find that out and get back to you. If you want to get, Sue, if you want to get me for contact info.
Yes.
Yes.
The New York Times Magazine did a profile on DeSantis a number of months ago. I don't know how many people read that. One of the things that was brought up that he apparently commented on was that he felt concerned about the fact that if Medicaid was expanded in this state, it was going to attract a lot of immigrants into the state of Florida who would then try to claim Medicaid expansion benefits. I don't know how to say this politely, being from the state of New York, but you folks have a real problem down here in terms of your governor.
Well, and just talking about facts, he was only elected initially by like 30,000 votes, which in Florida is around here. So, but yeah, no. I will tell you this when it comes to immigration and Medicaid expansion. Medicaid expansion would be it would be available for all documented residents of the United States, right? So the idea of like a bunch of immigrants are going to come here, they're undocumented, they're going to get, no, yes, we are a country that if a person goes into an ER, regardless of whatever their background is, they get treated. That's our humanity as a nation, right? And it doesn't matter their status, whatever. They come in, they're bleeding, they're hurt, they get treated. Any concerns about costs, if it's an emergency situation, are dealt with afterwards, right? But when it comes to Medicaid expansion as a program, that's available for all documented residents of the United States. And that is the federal government standing of Medicaid in general. Yes?
They're saying now that any person that comes into the emergency room, they have to show that they're a legal resident. If they're an alien or they're illegal alien, they're checking everybody that comes in there. And people are not going into the emergency room. They're getting sicker out there. That we have people that, that have to live here in Florida, and they're not going to the emergency room. They're getting sick and dying because they have to show now that they are illegal residents.
Yeah, I mean, there's interpretations that that's a health hazard, right? That say someone had some sort of contagious disease, and then they're hiding because they're like, I don't want to get arrested, I don't want to get deported, and then that's a health hazard. There's also ideas, interpretations, it's a crime hazard, right? Suppose the person's being abused and they're aware of a crime, and they don't want to come forward. There's also ideas that I've heard studies that Florida has some of the highest amount of uninsured car drivers, right? And so and actually the legislature came together at one point to talk about driver's license for undocumented folks. Not because you're subordinating, being undocumented or whatever, but just because the idea that you have folks who live here, maybe they haven't worked out their legal status, but they do work here and they're driving on our roads. And if they don't have insurance and they hit somebody because they can't get a license, then that's on us, right? And so it's there's a lot of interpretations that, folks being undocumented and not being able to use services, but being part of our communities is a real issue,
So I think if people will be treated if they come into the emergency room, regardless, as you say, most of the time. But the problem is when you have things like cancer, where it goes on and on and on, and you can't get treatment, you're going to die.
True. Yeah. So it's okay.
But they're putting through all these BS bills that she's talking about, instead of trying to lower our insurance rates in our state.
Yes, it's true. I've read that the homeless people, the homeless Americans living here, they can't even apply for anything because they don't have an address. Is that true?
So I know that there are homeless folks that what they can do is they can use a homeless shelter as their address and things like that. But yeah, definitely there's certain challenges to being housed, and especially when you have laws created that are more specific to folks that are housed in a specific place, right? Oh, you have to have your address here, you have to be within, it makes it complicated for folks to absolutely.
Speak about residents, but they are Americans.
Yeah.
Just not lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, there are, but yeah, as far as I know, I've known direct situations where folks have used a shelter as their address, or shelters have leveraged themselves to be that as a resource for houseless folks. Yes, sir.
I have a question about mental illness. Right now, it's very, very difficult to get somebody who is can't work and needs government assistance to get SSDI. The normal reaction is you're denied at least 3 times. If this type of care is further eroded, we're going to have so many more mentally ill people who are going to do unlawful things. Especially if they could get a gun, that's right. Is there anything that people that, and I'm talking mental illness that they're an adult, so they can't go into their parents any longer, but they can't hold a job, and so they have no income, and if that's if the SSDI is cut back even further, we're gonna have a serious problem here.
I agree. I agree in terms of like withdrawing services that are pertinent always create issues. I've never really understood the logic of withdrawing services that folks need personally. But like, yeah, I wouldn't disagree with anything you just said.
A lot of the shootings right now are by mentally ill people. And so if we cut back entitlement programs even more, you don't want to go to any public place.
I think there's multiple studies that support the idea that if you cut back services folks need, then you have bad outcomes. Yeah.
So it all comes down to the fact that Republicans are heartless, cruel, white
You know, I know some Republicans, I'm sure a lot of y'all do as well. For a lot of them, I don't think that's true, honestly. It's just people get into a thing when it comes to politics. It's almost like religion, like that they...
But they vote for heartless, cruel, white supremacists. They may not be them themselves, but then they vote for them.
You know, honestly, I've met some Republican legislatures, and they're not too different than the voters. You know, they're informed as much as a person could be on a particular issue, right? But when it comes down to like what they really believe, what they like, you know, they're just people. And you know, like when you see halls, and look, I'm not playing devil's advocate at all. I'm just speaking. I'm honestly speaking to the hope I have for our democracy, right? And I understand the perspective of where we are, but like when you look at certain halls of government, and I've been in Tallahassee and I've read stories beyond what I've seen, and it's very difficult for folks to like have an independent voice, even as a Republican, right? Things are very tightly controlled, and there are consequences for stepping out of line.
Right.
And that's one thing I'll tell you is like, with this, we're trying to work as a grassroots level, having volunteers in the field to collect petitions, because like the more energy and buzz we're able to create about it, the harder it'll be for certain folks in the leadership of whatever party, right, to like attack individuals who might have like a rural district or a red district where folks are like, we need help or we like this, and then maybe they just want to be quiet about it, or they just don't want to like attack, or maybe they even want to support it. There are a few Republicans that are out there doing a media circuit in Florida right now supporting it, right? And who also have very conservative opinions on other issues. And so that's why, yeah, why we need your help to raise as much buzz about it as possible, because then it'll provide, you know, some folks would say maybe a little tough, it'll provide the perspective that they can support this because it's a popular issue. And at the end of the day, elections are about popularity, you know, more so than anything else, and these are elected officials. Yeah.
You quoted a number earlier of the reimbursement that Florida lost,
Mhm.
22
billion.
over.
Past like, yeah, since ACA, so that's like, since like 2010 or so. Yeah. Yeah, it's the Urban Institute. So if you Google like Urban Institute Medicaid expansion, the study will come up. You're welcome. Okay.
Just one last thing. The group that this is associated with,
Florida Science Healthcare, yeah.
could you just tell us a little bit about your leadership group? I know you are looking for grassroots folks to sign petitions, but...
Yeah, so we have an executive board. It's a bunch of nonprofits. Florida Health Voices is one of them. I believe Scott Darius came and spoke with y'all at some point. Planned Parenthood is on our board. I don't know if y'all have heard of SEIU. It's a Service Employees International Union. So they're also on our board. We have Catalyst Miami, it's a nonprofit down in Miami. We have, there's Unidos US, which is a national group. They're on our board as well. We have like several, it's most of our board, we have like several folks on our board, several organizations. And what they do is they help to decide the sort of direction strategically, and they also help to fundraise. We're gonna need a couple $1 million to do this because the bulk of the petitions will be paid petitioners. And obviously Florida right now has very particular rules for paid petitions. And right now we're doing the volunteers, but like eventually we will do the paid petition campaign. But yeah, that's our board. Our board is on our website, all of the organizations. Off the top of my head, I'm not quoting all of them, but yeah, you're welcome.
And what is your website?
FloridaDecidesHealthcare.org.
Florida?
Florida Decides Healthcare.org. I want to get t-shirts and hats and stuff. And also, Sue offered for us to have like envelopes. We don't have envelopes made up, but if you go to our website, FloridaDecidesHealthcare.org, you can donate to our political